I think one of the things that has happened to the first generation of kids to grow up always being online, which by the way are my kids, they have never experienced dial-up or anything like that. They've always had always on. And what I've seen is they have a global awareness that was not present in my generation. They really feel as if this is one world. They also feel as if they are always connected to everyone else. There is a feeling of being connected that I did not have in my generation. And I think the third thing is that there is a sense of movement forward, the sense of going somewhere, of maybe you might call it progress, that I think was not present in previous generations.
So when I look at whether social technologies and the social web is a good thing or a bad thing, if it's horrible for society or wonderful for society, I think the reality is that it's here. It's not going away. And so it's up to people who use it to decide whether it is going to represent the best of human nature or the worst of human nature. And realistically, it's probably going to be a little bit of both. But what is possible today with social technologies is profound. I almost wonder if on some level the problems that we have to tackle as a human race have presented themselves at the exact same time that the technology to actually address them in a compelling global way has also appeared. So if you look at it, the kinds of things that we have to solve as global citizens, we actually have the tools to be able to solve them, in part because of what makes people so special, which is the fact that we're innovators and we are people who can change the world. So we now have tools. 25 years ago, we didn't have a way to impact the world in one single instant. Today we do, and it's through the internet.
Nation states.
Well, I think it's important to recognize that the same infrastructure of this wiring up of the world and the digitalization of everything, down to the barcodes that track the way physical goods move, it's the same infrastructure that supports this virtual community business, but it's also the same infrastructure that has created globalization, economic globalization. The fact that there are people in India who answer the phone when you make a support phone call, the fact that an automobile is manufactured in 17 different countries, the fact that China can control the mobile phone industry if it wants to, because there's certain rare elements that are exported from there. This interconnection on an economic level, and the fact, of course, that we've got nuclear weapons and we've got a world in which conflict is no longer easily localized. I think these things are all connected. It's a cliche to say that we're in this global village. It's not a global village, but we're in a highly interconnected globe. And I think if we're going to be interconnected financially to the point where when banks fail in one country, they fail in another country, or whether there's a conflict in the Middle East, it's going to result in mayhem elsewhere in the world, that ordinary citizens being able to communicate with each other is important. I'm not saying that world peace is going to break out, but I think that it's an important part of what we are learning. We're learning how to live together on the planet, and if we don't learn that, then we're not going to. Well, people look at me and I dress a little unusually and they think, oh, you must be from California. Of course, people in California think, oh, you must be from Mars. So, your next door neighbor is not necessarily the person that you are going to make a connection with. In fact, the person you make a connection with might be on the other side of the world. And while that's not true of everybody, certainly for me, and I bet it's true for you, there are very few places in the world where I can go and not get at least one and maybe 15 people to show up for lunch or dinner, and the conversation starts immediately because we know that we share some things in common. So does it matter that you're Slovenian and I'm American? What matters is that we have this shared interest.
No, I absolutely believe that the possibilities and the opportunities for people to live a rich, passionate life that allows them to express themselves in all the ways that they want to, regardless of where they live geographically. I don't think it gets any better than that. So fundamentally, again, social technologies are reflective of human nature, whether it's, you know, connecting you to the people that you know or connecting you to people around the things that you care about. And when you look at it in that context, everything that people are doing in terms of learning how to connect with other people online is towards a common goal. So whether that common goal is sharing news articles for fun, or, you know, entertaining themselves by listening to amazing music in the context of a artist fan site or an artist website or a MySpace page or a Facebook fan page, all of those skills can actually be used for anything. So we have a Ning network for the Pickens plan, which is here in the United States. T. Boone Pickens, who has been a big oil entrepreneur over the years, is passionate about wind energy. Over 200,000 organizers across 91% of the congressional districts in the United States have come together in a social activism network and changed the course of wind energy policy in the United States. The same exact foundation, the same exact technology is being used for people to express themselves around their tricked out cars on Dub Pages, which is a social network on Ning for people who love to trick out their cars. So as people are actually learning how to use social technologies, they are using them in all sorts of ways. So of course, social technology is going to have a massive impact in terms of how people organize politically, what they do economically, and how they express themselves as being unique individuals in a social way. So I actually think and really look at it as the skills people are learning across all of these facets of the world. It's not a surprise that they're using them for political activism. And I think that the part about it that is just amazing is the fact that it is global. Ning, when we launched in 2007, we launched Ning Networks, we had registered users in over 100 countries. Day one, the internet is global. The world is global. And I think that when you look at, you know, the fact that media is global today in a way that it never was before, it is going to have fundamental impact on the way the world works. And I think that's a good thing.
We're seeing businesses, we're seeing politicians communicating with their public, with their customers via Twitter. How do you think that it's a different, or rather by the web, how do you think that communication via the internet is different than communication that they would do traditionally via television, radio, newspaper?
Well, the biggest thing is it's two-way.
Yeah.
It's not broadcast.
There's an engagement there that you don't get from watching TV. You can't talk back. That's the big thing we're seeing with like brands and companies and we were surprised because they jumped into Twitter and they started engaging immediately. One of the first examples we saw was this large cable company here in the U.S. There was a popular blogger, and he also had a Twitter account. He was complaining that his cable was out, and he's like, I'm going to write about this cable company, Comcast, and how terrible they are, and it's going to be the #1 search result in search engines for years to come. And they were monitoring Twitter's search for any mentions of their brand name, and they saw that within a few minutes, and they replied to him on Twitter, and they said, what seems to be the problem? Maybe we can send a van out to your house. And they had his cable fixed in like 30 minutes. So the next day the blog post was, Comcast is great customer service. And it was like a complete reversal, and we were like, wow, they're really smart about it. And so over and over again, companies are just jumping in, engaging with customers, and it's great for the customers too. Stuff that's emerging in social media is people trying to find new, interesting ways to communicate, become more efficient, become more engaged, become more informed. And I think it leads ultimately to having more empathy, to understanding more about what other people are, what's happening with other people, and sort of putting yourself in their shoes more often because you're engaging with them. So
I think one of the things that the web is doing, the kind of glue that it's brought to us that we haven't had before, is the glue of obsession, the glue of fascination, the glue of passion about something in particular. And so I think people who maybe before were lost or felt alone in their own little interests now are able to really connect with people who share what they share, this fascination with something in particular. And that particularness has been amplified and magnified. And that is the glue that I think brings a lot of people together that was not present before. You know, on first impression, people were very suspicious of the ability of the web to actually really enable serious relationships and trust. And when Pierre Omidyar invented eBay, this was one of the arguments against his startup was nobody is going to buy a car online. No one's going to buy anything online from a stranger they've never seen. But Pierre said, no, actually, the things that we call trust are really forms of communication. And if a wire can carry electronic charge, it can actually carry trust as well. And so, not only that, but the basic premise is that people want to be good if they're allowed to, if you give them the means and the mechanisms to. And so he was able to make a way in which to breed trust electronically, and I think we've seen from the success of eBay that this is really something that the web can do.
So, regardless of whether you think, you know, social technology and the internet is good or bad, it is. This is what, you know, the genie is out of the bottle. And I think that's an amazing thing. The social web can do more good in the world than it can do bad. And it's the choice of people and the people who are using it as to what they want to do with it. It is the most empowering generational shift that has ever happened. And I think that that is what makes it so compelling and so inspiring and so much fun. When you look at the fact that you can be sitting in your pajamas on your couch and help drive, you know, world peace, that is actually happening today. That's possible in a way that it was never possible before. And I think that that's something that is incredibly important. So, you know, does it mean that people have shorter attention spans? Yes. But is that a bad thing? Maybe, depending on what your point of view is. But in terms of what it can actually enable socially, economically, and politically, I think that we should embrace and welcome social technology, not fear it.
So, like all technology, it's a double-edged, triple-edged. The sword has multiple edges. Despite what the boosters of the internet say, technology, no kind of technology is a cure for human nature. Technology is an amplification of human nature, an amplification of all aspects of human nature.
To the web, because the web is so much bigger than just business, making money, and governing. It is really culture at large. It's a new form of culture, and the culture will range from playfulness and inefficiency and just playing around to the most serious accomplishments and achievements of humanity. So it has the full range, and I think we should embrace that, the fact that it can be trivial, that the web can be a waste of time, that it can be nonsense, and at the same time, it's probably the greatest thing that we've ever done.